Hey everybody, Sari here, and welcome back to the defense matches this week. A bit of a slight spoiler, I guess, from earlier in the week with the offense matches, but we had a really successful defense week this time around. I didn't end up changing anything on the team for the week. Again, I'm pretty comfortable with how well the team has done overall, and I don't think I'm going to make any significant changes until the end of the month when we see what the new mythic is. It's nice that the team is consistent enough too, that I feel comfortable using it outside of a bonus week for Brunnya or help, and that I don't feel too pressured to rotate in the mythics every week. Oops. So we actually had a better than usual set of defenses this week. I think it's pretty rare to see just a perfect week in the vault. So it's fun to see. Really glad that it happened. Let's get started with this first one. This was an interesting way to start the week with Winter Altina, who is a pretty consistent visitor in late seasons, and a Dusel. I feel like they use these two as sort of a multi-tank team, where Altina can just sweep out most of the threats and Dusel can clean up anything that she might actually have trouble with. And Milla. They did have a bit of an unfortunate thing here where Milla can't actually isolate anything. She just doesn't have anything invested into her defense at all. And it's part of why I've put so much into Azura's defense. Because it doesn't work every time, but it does happen sometimes. I spent a couple of turns here just setting up and breaking structures. They did get to snipe our healing tower, which means their bolt tower gets an absolutely incredible hit. And then they take a 50-50 on this trap to get Hell knocked out, which I think was entirely just to pre-charge Twin Blades. But they even forget to use her duo skill, which is odd, and they left basically all of their backline in range of Eliwood and Bramamond, and yeah. Well, it's a little odd. I thought they were just going to hit and run, but then they basically gave up their backline's safety to get Altina onto the defense tile. And that doesn't even work for them. I think the only reason she did 0 damage with that was because Eliwood cleared out her options for activating Unity, but it was still funny to see. Then Bramamond just takes down Milla. Eliwood ends up suiciding into Dusel at the end here, but at that point they're down to Dusel on his own, and that's just not going to end well. They don't end up conceding, they just move Dusel in, and, well, Bram takes that knockout. It's fun to start the week off with a clean sweep. This one was a lot more interesting, actually. I really liked how they set their team up. So the star of the show here is this +10 Ross, who is really, really impressively invested with the Plegian Axe and Spurn. The Plegian Axe is a really, really neat idea, and I just feel like if they had Tamari on air, it would work out a lot better for them overall. It would help activate Spurn too. And they also brought a sort of off-tank and or support with this +10 Seliph. Sudden Panic is great at shutting down any visible buffs that the defense team might be using. It's kind of like bringing a Versa along, but then you also get to run sabotages that do more than -3. The Infantry Pulse also ends up activating Deadeye for Shine-In, so what I imagine they usually try to do is have Shine-In snipe something immediately, and then just use Seliph and Ross to intercept whatever else comes at them. It's a really cool team, and I think it can do a lot of work if they play it right. We end up missing their Bolt Tower again, but they don't get our Healing Tower this time, so it's a bit harder for them to take advantage of it. They just take a couple of turns to break the structures. They end up starting on the Bolt Tower turn, but the Healing Tower just undoes that, so... Ross actually does a pretty good job of tanking Bramman here. Just by surviving the round at all. But unfortunately, we do have dancers, and we can't tank that next attack.
To the very end.
And then Eliwood moving forward actually gives Bramman a warp point. And it's just enough. Just enough for them to knock out Field the Seliph as well. At 1 hit point though. Yeah, and losing both of those is enough for them to just concede the match. The third match was, well... that's what ladders are for, right? It's just you don't want to deal with that. This fourth match, on the other hand, was probably my favorite match of the week. I personally really like the Black Knight. He's one of my favorite villains in the entire series. And this one just... it's beautiful. As much as it does hurt to see Elondite get replaced, this works really, really well for this build, which basically sets him up to reply to any attack with an immediate Black Luna, thanks to the acceleration of Slaying Edge and Steady Breath. And he also gets a guard effect, along with a guaranteed follow-up, and he's more than fast enough to punch through any impact effects that might come his way. I don't think he really needs the quick riposte here. He might just be better off with a solo or something. But basically, they pair him with this Brunnya, and the save skill means that she only has to worry about ranged attackers. And the Black Knight just typically is going to murder anything with Black Luna that attacks her in melee. Null Follow-Up is a great skill for her, especially with the double speed solos. Lets her deal with Bramman very easily and shut down a lot of other auto follow-up type stuff, like Felix. And they brought Peony, Freya, and Air along. I really do like this pair though. I might end up trying this myself, but I'd probably want to go for the attack defense save instead of the attack res one. I think it's better overall. And I just don't know if I'll have enough orbs to try to pull for any dedues. We take a couple of turns just to break these structures, make sure that nobody gets panicked. And then they move Brunnya onto the defense tile with Black Knight out of range of any melee, so that nothing attacks the Black Knight directly, which is important. Brunnya handles Bramland pretty well here. But unfortunately, Glimmer isn't really quite enough for her to actually knock Bramland out. And the biggest problem, I think, with this pair is that neither of them has a way to heal themselves. So, any damage they take is damage that sticks. And Black Knight can't quite finish off Azura, but he can deal with Eliwood. And Brunnya can handle Bramland on the second round. But again, at this point she's taken quite a lot of damage, and the attack isn't quite over yet. And Felix has enough damage to finish her off. Partly thanks to her attack smoke, which is actually giving him an extra 7 damage. Thanks to Unity. So what they try to do is basically substitute Freya for Brunnya going forward. And I think the assumption is that, well, color advantage against every remaining major threat means she'll deal with it easily. Felix has other plans. And even though Hel gets herself knocked out here, it's still pretty bad for them, especially when Felix just gets danced forward to snipe Peony.
Time to sleep.
And at that point they concede. That was a really fun match to see. This was another neat one. Partly because, well, we got another +10 Brunnya right after the previous one. This one's using a Lull and Fury instead, which is interesting. I don't know how well Fury does, especially with no way to heal as an AR tank, but maybe they don't plan to use her as a tank so much as just a nuke. They also brought in Ashnard, who is not quite maxed out. He's just missing that last merge. I think they're just waiting for his rerun, which is entirely fair. It saves a lot of grails. They're using a pretty basic build on him with this quick riposte and bracing stance. Guidance is interesting. It does help everything else navigate the map, so... Got Vanilla, and Peony, and Air. Using Fortress Def Res for Air without Tamari is kind of odd, but it does help her tank things that she might not be able to handle otherwise. They just take a couple of turns to get in position here, and they end up using Ashnard as the forward tank on the defense tile and pulling the rest of their team back. Unfortunately, this particular flavor of Ashnard can't handle Bramament very well.
I make my stand here. More, I say.
And then Eliwood moves in and makes room for Bramament to get danced again, and, well, turns out Brunnya can't handle Bramament either. Not without no follow-up.
I won't lose.
Your Highness.
Well, we can't get anything else here. That's losing those two is enough for them to surrender. Match 6 was another round of just nope. It's kind of odd to get 2 of those in 1 week, but I can't complain. Still success. This 7th match was interesting. They brought both a bonus week Henriette and a bonus week Gustav, supported with each other and everything. And they backed them up with Micaiah, which is, I think, actually a really good idea, because the dominance buff can really help them actually secure knockouts in 1 round against some of the trickier targets. They've got a Tamari Air and a Milla. They don't take much time getting to position here, it's just getting the armors moved forward. Oddly, they don't actually use Micaiah's duo skill, which they would have been able to use it again because they have an indulgence, so I'm not sure why they held back. But once Hollywood yanks Gustav off of that defense tile and gets danced, things start to go pretty poorly for them. He gets to Gale Force through Micaiah and then pick up air. And that's part of the trick with using save skills, is that you need to make sure that your close save unit is not getting attacked by a lunge user, because otherwise that lunge effect doesn't actually get cancelled out. And even with all of her defensive buffs against ranged, Henriette doesn't really do very well against Felix. Gustav can actually tank this, thanks to that 75% damage reduction on the first hit. And Felix can't really do too much to him, especially without Bonfire.
Know the strength of Asker.
And he can actually even deal with health pretty easily too. Unfortunately, he's kind of stranded out here, and yeah, without Henriette, they'd have a pretty hard time of actually finishing this, so they just concede here. This one was a bit of an eye-opener. I can't say that I was expecting to see Marianne show up this quickly. This was, I think, 2 days after the banner launched. And I certainly wasn't expecting to see a completely maxed out Marianne this fast. Someone's been waiting for her, I think. She's very, very impressive here. The double solo skills do a lot to bring her defense up to a really solid level, and she's got a decent speed stat too, and her res is fantastic, so... And then they supported her with Flame for some extra damage reduction. And they've got a Tamari Air, Milla. Lancebreaker is an interesting choice for her. I'm not really sure what they're trying to deal with that. And a Peony. We do miss their Bolt Tower, and they actually do take advantage of that. And with Bolt Tower, Marianne doesn't have any problems dealing with Felix. She'd actually knock him out even without it, but she would have taken some damage for her trouble. Unfortunately, well, not being able to counterattack Eliwood means that he can just yank her off of this defense tile and, well, then Eliwood gets danced, and Flame can't pulse smoke this Gale Force, especially not since she just gets knocked out. And then Peony's a very easy second target. And once Marianne's isolated and off the defense tile and panicked, it's actually very easy for Hell to clean up.
I am death itself.
Why wasn't able to help?
Sorry, Marianne. And losing their front line like that was just enough for them to surrender. This was an interesting one. I'm still not entirely sure how they were trying to win this one. I think it comes down to using Micaiah as their hit and run unit. And I think hoping for their bonus weak air to do some carrying as well. Having two dancers helps a lot with that. And their Milla can actually isolate Eldigan even through the chill defense, which was really impressive to see. It's a full defense focused Milla. It's very impressive. And, well, armor effectiveness means Micaiah can break through Felix pretty easily. It's actually really, really close here. Yep, and they dance and reposition out, but they don't get far enough back. And you can only isolate one of the dancers, so Hollywood gets danced forward and Gale forces through Micaiah. And picks up a Zero pretty easily too. They do end up pushing on with this, and Air with Peony's support can eventually take Hollywood down. Unfortunately, they aren't in a very good spot even with that. I think they were hoping that Bramman wouldn't get danced, but Swap puts them back into range of the non-isolated dancer, and they can just hop forward and pick up Peony.
Time to sleep.
Air can actually finish Brammy off here. It's very close, but
Meet your defeat.
she actually survives with 1 hit point, and the iceberg's enough to finish them off. Unfortunately, at this point, it's, yeah. Hell moves in to finish off Air, which is, I guess, kind of appropriate.
Death comes to me.
And even though Azura can't do a whole lot to Milla, Milla can't do very much back either.
Cold, are you?
And with Milla as the only one they have left, they decide to just surrender and move on. Got another clean sweep almost at the end of the week. It was fun to see. This team brought along a +10 Lyon with his new Refine, which is fun to see. I think they have him here almost exclusively just to deal with Hell. And, well, I say that, but he'd do pretty well against Bramamons as well, thanks to Triangle Adept and his Raven Tome. They also brought a legendary Claude. I did not manage to get a Claude. I didn't put a whole lot of orbs into his banner, but it would have been nice to see him. I'll just be happy with the Hell merge, I guess. He also brought a Milla, who, a lot like the earlier one, can actually isolate Eltkin even through the chill defense. And they brought a peony. This was an odd skill to give her. It's only +1 attack from her baseline dance, so I feel like it would be better as a different skill. And an air. They take a turn to break the structures, and they're basically aiming for a hit-and-run approach that baits the team further into the bolt tower. And Claude's 80% damage reduction means that he can get away with a lot of nonsense, even without IOTs. They hit and run, and retreat. And they count on Claude's gravity effect to slow the team down enough that they can't catch up. Unfortunately, ground orders means that Felix doesn't care about gravity.
You've shown your weakness.
And
Erica.
the forward position of Eliwood means that he can just warp in and snipe Lyon before Lyon gets a chance to do anything. They keep going here, and they end up spending their entire their entire team's actions just on Felix.
This is your name on it.
That 80% damage reduction is so much work, though. It's kind of impressive. Nair can finish him off in the end. But honestly, at this point, Felix did his job, and their entire team is stranded here. Brunnya can pick off air without any problems.
I will crush you.
Death comes to me.
Then Eliwood can Gale Force his way through Peony.
Time to sleep.
And steps forward to finish off Milla as well. And as strong as that skill of Claude's is, it only works on the first combat. Which means that Eliwood can disable it, and then Bram can finish Claude off.
Sorry, but it's up to you now.
This last match of the week was pretty fun too. I haven't seen many maxed out Sophias, but this one was really impressive. She's built a lot like I built my Oliver, actually, where a lot of her skills are aimed at fixing her speed and defense, which, once you remove those as potential weak points, especially her speed, she becomes a lot harder to knock out than you would expect. They also brought a Guinivere who, honestly, this is a very cool build for her. I like it. A Peony and Flame to help reduce the damage taken even more, and a Marianne. I think this pair is actually really good at dealing with Bremnons. Either you one-shot them with Guinevere, or you tank them outright with Sophia. They take a couple of turns just to break the panic matter. And then they set up. So what they do here is they hit and run and use Sophia to intercept afterwards. Flame can attack in thanks to her dazzling staff. without having to worry about a counterattack. And then everybody pulls their way back. Unfortunately for them, Eliwood goes after the defense tile, which puts him in range of Peony. And, well, Eliwood getting onto the backline is never ending well for the backline. This lane doesn't last much longer than that.
Mother, soon.
And even if the rest of the team can't catch up, that Eliwood knocking out 2 units for free effectively is a really good start. Guinivere can deal with Eliwood. Love that animation. And then they have set Sophia up to intercept Bramland. Mostly because Felix doesn't have ground orders anymore, so... Sophia does a really good job of tanking Bram here. And while she doesn't quite knock them out, she doesn't take a whole lot of damage from them either. Might be better off using a non-ether special for her though, overall. And this part was just really impressive, where Azura can't even double the Sophia. Unfortunately, Felix gets swapped away from the front line, so he doesn't get to guard Azura from Guinivere, or Bramland for that matter. So they finish off Azura and Bramland.
I too can help.
And I'm not sure if they quite realized that Sophia wasn't going to just be able to bait Eldigan here. Because it looks like that's what they were trying to do. But guidance means that Felix jumps forward instead.
Into the darkness.
And Sophia can't handle that. And then he gets next and picks up another easy knockout on her.
Death comes to me.
And at that point, Guinevere can't really get anything done thanks to the save skill, so they just surrender it. It was a really good set of matches overall this week. There were a lot of fun teams. I still really like that Black Knight combo. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the matches. Good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.